welcome to the Gift Show. My guest today is Lea Tran. Lea, you're very welcome on the Gift Show.
No, thank you, John, for having me here.
You're most welcome. I've had some news on the economic front this week. The Bank of England increased the interest rate in the UK. This week, Twitter and Stripe also announced significant numbers of redundancies. So are we going to see more redundancies in the technology sector? Who knows? Let's see how the news unfolds over the next number of weeks ahead between now and Christmas. Anyway, Lea, Thanksgiving is fast approaching in the US. What have your clients been saying to you about the cost of living and inflation and their preparation for Thanksgiving? And what's their attitude to spending money on Black Friday and again on Cyber Monday?
Wow, that's a lot of question. And yes, absolutely. Holidays approaching. Thanksgiving is around the corner, only in 20 days. And yes, everything is astronomical in pricing that when you go out shopping, you can actually feel the string of your pocket, it's tucking. And obviously it is tough. And usually I don't talk to my clients about this. But you can feel it. I can feel it. We all can feel it. And Thanksgiving is time that people would fly home to see their loved ones
Very
or
good.
drive home. So the gas price, the air ticket, everything is expensive. And you can actually see everything, even in the supermarket, everything you go, you see 20-30% price higher than normal. And John, I just look it up, sort of speak, because we're talking about inflation. So I know that the rate of inflation is about 8 or 9% since last year. You don't even have to look it up. You start seeing it everywhere, especially if you are the one who's holding the wallet. You go shopping, you can feel it. You can definitely feel it. And I don't know. People are still spending. I think that Black Friday is a huge commercial marketing place for everyone. So everybody is trying to take a piece of that market. And even though everything's expensive, I still see that people do have money to spend. As hard as it is, there's still people in different sector of finance that people might not want to invest in certain thing, or they will scale back, or they will rotate their money around. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to wait and see.
And what has been the outcome of the midterm elections? Any results yet in the US midterm elections for
I
2020?
don't think it's out yet. I don't think it's out yet.
And in terms of policy, at a federal government level and in Washington, what has been the response to inflation other than the US federal board increasing the interest rate, making mortgages more expensive for people? Make, uh,
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think a lot of politicians are probably trying to blame someone and then gonna say that they're gonna do better, but you know that this is not a US crisis. This is the global crisis. I
True.
wonder who can actually tame this beast. This is a problem from Asia to England to Europe to America to just about every country. We just have the worst couple years. I mean, COVID is something that nobody planned for.
True.
And you can see the supply chain demand is the demand sometimes is high and the supplies is not be able to afford to the demands. And like even if I go to a supermarket and I'm ethnic, I shop a lot of ethnic food,
Very
and
good.
going to the ethnic grocery store alone, you can see that dry good that used to be import from China or from different country, things are scarce. I mean, it's not a whole lot of selection that it used to be, and the price is about 30% more than it used to be. So things are that is the whole economic of the global issue. So I wonder if how many people actually can solve the problem. I think it's going to take time.
True.
And hopefully there's no more war, there's no more, natural disaster crisis, because that's just going to add more uh, pain to the injury. I mean,
Of course. I know,
right.
yeah, I know what you're saying there. And I had a very interesting conversation recently with another guest speaker on season 6, Neil Gappion, and he was talking about the fact that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the US Federal Board, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, they all printed billions upon billions of dollars, euros, sterling to keep the economy afloat when
Yeah,
people were furloughed from their jobs. In other words, the government paid for people to stay at home and work from home while their employer couldn't afford to pay for them.
right,
And that's resulted in inflation because the growth of money was far higher than the
right,
growth of output in the economy. And that's contributed to inflation. But you also made a very good point there, of course, with your ethnic food from China. Because of these lockdowns in China, the supply chain between China and Europe, China and the United States has been disrupted. So there's less produce available for you to purchase. And it's getting more costly to buy that because there's more money in the economy than is required. So the price is not it's going to go up, as you say, 20 or 30%. And you just have to bear that cost or else
right.
go without your ethnic food. Yeah, indeed. So moving on, what would be your advice to the average family or the vulnerable in our society in terms of trying to ride out this inflation storm or to, make the best of a bad lot?
Absolutely. Before we get to that, I do have a lot of advice coming from the background that I'm so used to stretching the dollars, right?
Yeah.
I come from a background of refugees and poverties. And so I have a lot of tricks on my sleeves. But before that, I want to say that like last month, I went to do a keynote, and that was in the industry for window treatment. So I used to be that's what my line of work used to be, in the window treatment. So people would sell blind shades and drape fabrics, all this luxury stuff. And I have talked to my audience, a lot of them struggle because not just food from ethnic background or imported, even mechanical stuff, fabric from India, fabric from China, some of the major company that used to print a lot of fabric, even produced from United States. Things are not keeping up, so they can't produce the luxury material either. So people are start feeling, in 2020, things that they say they haven't really feel it. But this year particularly, they say that they start feeling that the price are jumping up and the selection is not as rich as it used to be. So it's hitting it. It take a little while
Mhm.
to hit the luxury good. But you know what? Luxury good are produced from low labor income country, right? All the stuff that we use they all have uh, a domino effect that somehow, some point. So going forward to what we need to do to pinch that dollar and make it stretch for us. So I have a lot of things that I would love people to take notes, in a sense, because you got to look at your budget. I mean, money is not easy to make. Granted that I know that the job sector is still easy for people to find job. There's still a lot of demand there. But if you look at the overall of your income and expenses, there's a lot of place that you can trim. There's
True.
a lot of place that you can see the waste that you can actually cut. Um, I know that a lot of people who do entertainments, but do you actually need Netflix, Hulu, Prime, Disney Channel? It's like,
True.
if those are the things that you subscribe, maybe you can pick one or unsubscribe and just watch YouTube. There's a lot of entertaining in free YouTube. So that was just one example. And I want to say that if you're eating out more often, is there some way you can scale it down to once a week? Or maybe you can just do homemade meal with family, or potluck with friends. So those are the things that where is your luxury item that you can actually trim and not feel like you are deprived from it. And the same go with entertaining, or even if you are really tight, make sure you have a game plan when you go grocery shopping. Because if you don't have a plan, you're going to end up buying everything you don't need and I just bring home and you don't have time to prepare it. I mean, if you want to eat a healthy meal, you buy vegetable, you buy fruit, and they are perishable item. They can really get rotten quickly. So
True.
if you have a game plan, you say, okay, I'm only going to need that many heads of lettuce. I'm going to need that. And you just put in a certain day of the week and you buy exactly what you need and don't waste it. I think one of the biggest problem, John, here in the Western world, we waste a lot of food. We waste a lot of things. And I myself included. I mean, I'm saying that, I have to take stock. I knew that in Vietnam, we only buy enough food for the day because we cook fresh. Every day we go to the supermarket. We don't have this kind of luxury here. So we buy like three different type of bread. We'll buy, all kind of cheese. And then sometimes we buy it in a big item and we can't consume it and it go bad.
And it
So
goes in the waste bin.
exactly. Wasting is the thing. And if you want to buy in a bulk, I know that lots of us have Costco. I don't know if they have Costco in England or in Ireland, but big wholesale store like BJ, Sam Club, those are the membership that you pay and then you have to buy a truckload of everything. Now maybe you can share with your family and then just buy a bulk and then come home and divvy up and say, we divide it and we share that portion so we're not going to waste. So those are the few things that I would give advice. And every time you jump into the car to go places, that's gas money.
True.
And
Yeah.
there's also time. So is there a way that you can chunk it? Maybe you only see clients twice a week, maybe just Tuesday and Thursday. So you will be on the car and you will go to that part of the town, see whatever you need to see, run whatever errand you need to run so you don't keep going and wasting gas.
True. I know what you're saying there. And what's the price of gas, as they call it in the States, at the moment? Has it gone up much in recent
It's
months?
up and down. It is stay in the low $3 to, I mean, there's a couple of places that I see like right around three, but it's gone up like three. I mean, unlead, probably 3.20, 3.20, and that's per gallon. So I know that it's compared to Europe, we are still very lucky. The price of gasoline compared to Europe, I think we're still a lot less.
Yeah.
But yeah, it used to be what in the tune everybody was just screaming and yelling and now we're in the three and it would go down to three. It's like whoa, gas price. So it's all in perspective, and if you can just share a ride with your friends and do shopping together, find a way. I think create a ways that maybe you can share the cost and even have community time together, friends time together. But yeah, there's just so many ways that we can cut costs. That's how you battle with inflation, and things gonna hopefully get better after the election. Who knows? After the new year, the war tamed down. But there's so many unknown factor out there.
True. I know what you're saying there. And in the United States, uh, what's the plans, to conserve energy over the winter periods? Because here in Europe, governments are having to make emergency plans because if you just take, for example, Germany, where they were
Mm,
so heavily dependent on the supply of gas from Russia,
yeah.
had to extend the working life of some of their nuclear power stations to maybe March, April, May next year. They're having to import gas from the United Arab Emirates because the supply of gas from Russia has been, substantially reduced. they're having to turn down the heating in public buildings. Is there a similar
Wow.
energy crisis in the United States, or is the United States more energy uh, sufficient?
We are spoiled, John. I think United States, we don't talk a whole lot about that. And obviously, when I was under the communists in Vietnam, we have our electricity turned off twice a week, and we have to learn to do everything when we have energy. But United States, I think there's still time. We need to learn how to turn off the switch when we don't use electricity in that room, because sometimes we just have lights everywhere.
Of course.
And right, and that is a waste. And obviously, if you can turn it into LED light bulb, that will conserve more energy. And I think that's something that we have to start learning how to think about tomorrow. Like sometimes we are spoiled, we take things for granted, and we don't think too much of it. And I am making an effort to conserve energy any way shape I can, and hopefully out there people will also do that. But it's scary. It's scary that we rely so much on the refrigerator, on washing machine, dryers, things that it come very
Of
natural
course.
to us.
Yeah. And it's the same here in Europe. We're very
Right,
dependent on our electric cooker, our air fryer, our washing machine, the clothes dryer.
right.
In some countries, air conditioning systems, more so in the Mediterranean countries and places like Italy, where they have
Mm-hmm.
warmer summers, they're reliant on, using air conditioning systems. You also have them, of course, in modern office buildings anywhere in Europe. So big
Yeah,
crunch.
I think it's just a conscious of awareness. Constantly, you got to tell yourself, and not just saving the electric bills, but you got to think about how are you still continue to save money like you regularly, because you don't want to shout every single dollar out to pay for all the bills and not having anything in the saving for your long term, for
Of
your
course.
future.
Yeah. And that's a discussion for another day where people put money into pension schemes.
Right,
Let's say people who've been doing it for maybe 20, 25 years, they've built up a pot of money in a money purchase pension scheme or defined uh, contribution pension
right,
scheme. And now, of course, they could have maybe two or $300,000 in the case of the US citizen in a pension scheme. If inflation continues into the medium longer term, that pot of money is going to become less valuable over time because inflation is going to erode that. That's
right,
one of the reasons why, for example, the Federal Reserve Board or the
right,
ECB here in Europe or the Bank of England are keen to, you know, get to the bottom of this inflationary issue and get
right.
inflation down is because people's savings will become less valuable over time.
Yeah, even if you're lucky, you have money for saving, because you you might not even have money for
Yep.
saving because you're spending everything you have to pay for whatever. Right now is the rising of everything, and the mortgage and the interest rate.
True.
And don't want to sound very downers or depressing, but it is something that is a fact, and the reality that we have to keep evaluating just to see is today is sustainable for tomorrow,
Of
and
course.
the lifestyle that we so much learning to love, are we going to have the same lifestyle going forward? So that is my biggest fear. I come from a line of very poverty, and I got to a place I'm very comfortable, and I'm always constantly, it's like I don't want to go back to
Well,
where.
yeah, of course, that's very understandable. And this has
Yes,
been a very interesting conversation because you're looking at it from two perspectives here today, Lee.
right.
Looking at it from the perspective of being a US citizen of today,
Hmm.
but you're also
Hmm.
looking back to your childhood, in particular your teenage years, before you made that boat journey from Vietnam, to get to America eventually.
Right.
So you have a double perspective on this whole crisis. You know what it's like to live in very difficult scenarios, and you don't want to go back to that lifestyle anymore.
Mm.
And I think that you've made some very good points here today is, for people, look at how much you're spending on eating out. Can a person eat at home? Also, if you're buying in bulk, can you buy less produce, in particular vegetables and fresh fruit, to make sure you've enough to keep yourself going for, or your family going for a week or so? The worst thing you can do is be putting, vegetables or fresh fruit in the refuse bin because it's gone off. Also, to look at the use of your car. That's a very good point there also. See, can you do multiple journeys over a couple of days to make intensive use of your car for a couple of days, rather than having your car going intermittently for 4 or 5 days a week? And also to look at, subscription channels, whether it's Netflix, whatever the case may be. See, can you
Right.
make cost savings there? Because the most important bills to think of are number one, your mortgage, number two, any car loan you may have, and number three is, getting a balance between spending on food and also paying for your gas and electricity in your house. So there's a lot
Right.
of savings people can make. I think it's what you're saying there is having the right mindset. This
Right.
has been a great conversation today, Lee. Is there anything
Well,
else you'd like to
thank
say to the
you.
audience before I let you go?
Yeah, I would say just, put it in category the necessity, the need, and the want. So if you can put all your item categorized in the necessity, the basic need stuff, you can't skim there, but you have to budget and you have to manage. And the need, like books for your children's school or whatever, those are the need.
Of course.
And then the want, and maybe accessory like coffee, twice a day. Maybe you can cut down to once or whatever. And wine, all the luxury item, can we skim that down to make it so the list can go into the necessity? So everything is manageable. Everything is in moderation. And I think, the inflation is just kind of make us into a more conscious zone about where our money goes. And if you learn to manage money, then you should be okay. You should be okay.
True. And on that note, I'll bring today's conversation to a close. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me on, and it's a really great show. Thank you for doing this.
You're most welcome.